Previously, the group asked a few pointed questions of Ember, the leader of the kobolds, as well as Emily, an older kobold who they'd noticed acted a bit odd at times. It quickly became clear that Emily had been transformed into a kobold and remembered at least some of her previous life, although the memories were buried. Once they left, Ryland cast legend lore on the Sovereign and discovered not only was it a beyond ancient red dragon, but it had the sword they were there to find. On their way to the nearest waystone, the Sovereign found them. Ryland threw up a pass wall, and Sean confirmed via locate object that the sword wasn't on the dragon. It clearly didn't consider them a threat, though, so it flew on after a bit. At the waystone, the voice that Thaurissan heard each time told him that all that was left was cleansing the lake. The group then moved on. Travel went uneventfully at first, but eventually the group arrived in an area that was odd. They were suddenly surrounded by a fog, and they heard a cracking sound like someone's back popping. Around that point, Sean and Tornak noticed what looked like a woman standing in the water ahead of them. They pointed her out to the others, and it didn't take long to realize it wasn't a woman. It was a serpent-like being with 5 separate heads, each with a body on it. Ryland, Sean, and Taria all remembered hearing ancient stories about a creature called Seraph, a being with 5 heads that guarded a passageway. At times, people were allowed to pass through their lair, but there was always a high cost. Tornak being Tornak, he did his best to talk their way out of it. He told Seraph that he'd heard a lot of stories, but he'd never heard of them. He said that if they let the group pass, they could do more for them. He could tell their story, and if the dragon was defeated, then more people would come to that area to potentially be fed upon. Seraph appreciated his offer, especially the songs. Of course, the group still had to pay the necessary price to pass through. That said, the group would be told the 5 prices they could pay, and they could then choose 3 of them. Normally, they told them the prices one at a time, and they had to take it or pass without knowing what was next. For his offer of sharing songs about them, they'd tell them everything up front. The options weren't great. They all required significant sacrifice of some type, and after a quick mental discussion, the group decided they weren't willing to pay it. No matter what, it would be too high. It was better to try to fight their way through, even if they weren't sure by any means that they would win. And that is where we left off.